Steven Spielberg's new film, The Fabelmans. Jim Parsons and Ben Aldrich are ready for love. Those are the new films we're going to be talking about this time on the first episode of The King's Korner. What's up, guys, and thank you so much for popping into this first episode of the King's Korner new review show that I've started on the channel. And today we're talking first about Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. This is a screenplay by Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner. And this is a very personal story to Steven Spielberg as we follow the young Sammy Fabelman and his family as Sammy gets in love with making films and his trials and tribulations with that, and we see what happens with his family and the dramatic implications that might have. This film has been getting a lot of buzz since it premiered, and I've been very excited to see it. It did not open in my theater on Thanksgiving weekend. As it said, it was open everywhere. It finally came to my theater, and my hometown theater, and guess what? This film is just as good as people have been saying. The direction by Steven Spielberg is so good, and it's so passionate. You can really tell that this story is a really passionate and private story to him, as he said that this is basically his true life story as a kid. This is him. This is Steven Spielberg. And I think that Gabriel LaBelle is really good as Sammy Fabelman, and he really pulls it off as this kid that just wants to make his family happy, and he also just wants to do what he loves, which is not a hobby. He wants to make movies. The supporting cast, Michelle Williams, Paul Dano as the parents, are fantastic. I think Michelle Williams is a shoo-in for Best Lead Actress for this. And I think Paul Dano as well. This gives us more of a quiet, subdued performance. But when he has to get into those serious scenes, I think he is incredible. And I think this might just be Paul Dano's best performance. Judd Hirsch has a small role as the grandfather in the film, who also has such powerful scenes. He's only in the film for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but when he's there, he has something to say. And so does Steven Spielberg with this movie. I think the only gripe I have with it is a little too long. You do feel the runtime, but I can't say that any of the scenes didn't work. I thought all the scenes were great. It's just after you leave the movie, you do say, wow, that did feel like a long movie. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And with this, it just felt like it was a beefy watch. There was a lot going on there. So at the end of the day, The Fabelmans is not one of my favorite Steven Spielberg films, but it's definitely one of the better films that he released within the past 10 or 20 years. I would say that it's not as good as West Side Story, which was my favorite film of last year, but it's certainly better than Ready Player One. And maybe even The Post, which I have a really good appreciation for that film as well. This is a 4.5 out of 5-star film for me, and I do think that it will get Steven Spielberg his third directing Oscar. The next film we're going to be talking about is, spoiler alert, starring Jim Parsons, Sally Field, Ben Aldrich, Bill Irwin. And this is a film that I feel will be highly compared to the film that came out a few months ago, Bros, starring Billy Eichner. And the big difference about those two films is this one is a much more serious drama, where that film is more of a lighthearted comedy, even though some of the subject matter is similar. I think that this film isn't as good as Bros, but it's not bad either. I think, spoiler alert, which is a terrible title for this movie. Why would you call this romantic film spoiler alert? What is the spoiler alert? Well, maybe it's because the film is edited in a way that you're going to find out what happens at the end of the movie, in the very opening of the film. You see the Ben Aldrich character. Things aren't looking very good for him. Jim Parsons is by his side, and then you get a voiceover by Jim Parsons saying it didn't always used to be this way. And I think that that's one of the weakest parts about the movie, is that the way that you find out what happens in the very beginning of the film, and you know that it's not going to end well. And then in the whole entire film, as they meet, you know that it is doomed from the start, just like the film Titanic. You know the boat sinks at the end of the movie, but the journey to get there Is it good? Is it compelling? And with spoiler alert, I was only just distracted by this guy is not going to make it. And I think the film is extremely melodramatic in that sense. The happiness is certainly there, but it's overshadowed by this giant rain cloud. I think this movie is a giant rain cloud, and I think it's a very depressing film. Now, when you see a movie like this, you don't want to leave feeling uplifted in any sense, but you don't want to leave feeling depressed either. And if you feel depressed, it has to open up the conversation, which this movie certainly does. I just think some of the execution of certain things could have been a little better, especially towards the end of the film, the way the film is edited, the way it's put together. I think just some of the execution isn't great, but I think Jim Parsons and Bill Aldrich are great in the film, and Sally Field and Bill Irwin are great as the parents as well. I think that the film also feels a little long. I think it could have been shortened a little bit. We get a lot of scenes where we think happiness is on the horizon, but in fact, we know that it isn't. So for spoiler alert, it's a 3.5 out of 5-star film, which I don't think is bad, but if you want to go see a film and be sort of depressed after leaving it, I think that this is the movie to do so. This is a movie like Seven to me. You watch it and you feel totally grimy after leaving. This just makes you feel downright sad. Is a feeling that maybe A Star is Born leaves you with as well. Next, we're going to be doing a little walk down memory lane, talking about another Steven Spielberg movie, War Horse. This film was released in 2011. And it was directed by Steven Spielberg. So War Horse is a film that I didn't see until it came out on Blu-ray years after the Blu-ray release. And I don't think it's talked about as much. I think that this is a very good film. I think it's a very heartwarming film. I think that the score by John Williams is terrific in the film. I think his emotional beats, his beats where the horse Joey is finally given up and he's escaped the tank towards the end of the movie, and he is just on the run through no man's land, getting caught up in all that barbed wire. I think John Williams' score in those scenes are absolutely incredible. And I think that the adventure that the horse goes on in the film as well is extremely powerful and riveting. You see the way that war takes things and how there are no prisoners in certain senses, and one false move will get you shot by the windmill. And I thought that the film was very powerful in that sense, but the key story, the most emotional story of the film, the through line of it is his relationship with the boy who raised him and his farm, which I think is very sweet. And we find that the two of them have to go on similar adventures and meet at probably the best time right before Joey is shot. Albert's making the noises. He's blinded by the gas, but they're still able to come back together. Does it feel a little long in the tooth a little bit? Maybe so, but this is based off a play. This is based off a stage play. So I think they had to stay very true to it. But I mean, some of the adventures that the horse goes on, the two boys that want to escape the war, Benedict Cumberbatch's character, which I thought was very, very likable. Tom Hiddleston's character, actually, I thought was extremely likable. So War Horse, I think, is quite honestly another 4.5 out of 5-star film, where I think if you haven't seen it and you want to watch a Steven Spielberg movie or two getting hyped for the Fabelmans, maybe the War Horse is one of them to watch. And finally, for the show, we have a physical media roundup, the new releases that came out this past Tuesday on 4K Blu-ray. We have Pulp Fiction, a beautiful Pulp Fiction 4K Steelbook. Haven't watched it. Haven't watched Pulp Fiction on 4K yet, but I am very excited to do so. The artwork is great. The nice, beautiful red, the designs. I love this Steelbook. It's one of the best Steelbooks of the year. Can't wait to watch Pulp Fiction on 4K Blu-ray, and following it up with Amsterdam, a film that I think should have done better. It's not a bad movie, and Christian Bale certainly deserves the Best Actor nomination for this. I thought he was very good in the story as well. I think it's up there with American Hustle for me, for a David O. Russell film. So would I recommend it? Yes, I would. I do think it's a good movie. And finally, a film that I haven't seen yet. It's Adaptation. Meryl Streep, Nicolas Cage, Chris Cooper, Spike Jonze film. Uh, Oscar nominations all around the board here. 4-star film. So yeah, look, can't really tell you much about it other than I'm very much looking forward to watching this eventually. Meryl Streep's one of my favorite actresses. If she is not my favorite, she's definitely my favorite actress of all time. And that wraps up episode 1. This is the first episode of the King's Corner. And that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter, RyanKing72, and Instagram and TikTok at KingOfRises131. It's the Fabelmans and Spoiler Alert, where I do give recommendations to both films. And guys, that's been it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. And until next time, over and out.